Ladies and gentlemen, over the past week and a half or so, we have been talking a ton about Black Ops Cold War. And don't worry, that won't end. I've got plenty more videos planned for that. However, I feel like Warzone has felt a little bit neglected. And the thing is Warzone has recently got a new weapon and a big meta change, and I haven't talked about it yet. So what we're going to be doing today is going over the 5 loadouts that I believe are the current best loadouts within Warzone. And the thing is that with the current meta of Warzone, these are by far the most varied class setups that I have made so far in Warzone. Every single class has a different primary weapon, whereas in the past, I had a couple classes with the Grau or a couple classes with the Bruen, whereas now they are all different class setups and they are very varied based off of the type of game that I actually want to play. So that is what we are going to be diving into today, a little video to help you become a better player at Warzone. Now, speaking of which, and speaking of becoming a better player, one thing that you can actually buy to become a better player is a SCUF controller. Now, I've talked about these guys in the past. I've used them for upwards of 5 years, and I recently got sponsored by them. And if you'd like to save some money on one, if you'd like to try one out, they have paddles on the back, which makes it easier to jump around, crouch, and aim at the same time. The best way to do so is click that first link down in the description and use coupon code INK at checkout, and you'll save yourself 5% on whatever you feel like buying. But without further ado, let me shut up and let's dive into what I believe are the 5 best loadouts currently within Warzone. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start out with what I believe is the very best class in Warzone right now, and it may actually be a surprise to some of you. And then I'm going to move on, and at the very end, I am going to go over the strangest class that I think is still absolutely top tier. So to start things out, like I said, you may be surprised, but I believe that the best weapon right now in Warzone is the PKM. So this is the class that I use with it, and all of the classes are pretty much going to be identical. First of all, the perks are EOD, Overkill, and Amped. EOD is there to counteract C4s, RPGs, or anything like that people are using. Overkill is obviously to use 2 primary weapons, and then Amped is there so that you can easily switch between your weapons, which is important when you're using like a long-range weapon like the PKM and then an MP5, because when you're up close, you really want that MP5 out, and to be able to switch to it quickly is a damn big deal. After this, we have C4 and Heartbeat Sensor. This has always been on my classes. C4, just easiest to control the explosions and get downs, and then Heartbeat Sensor just tells you where your enemies are. There is going to be one class where I don't use Heartbeat Sensor, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But as far as the class setup here, so first of all, going with the PKM, this thing just hits like a truck, and you're going to want to use that to your advantage. So the attachments that I'm using on this thing are, first of all, Monolithic Suppressor. You're going to see this on almost every weapon we look at today. After this, the 26.9 Heavy Barrel. It's going to improve your damage range and bullet velocity. Because you're going to be using this as your long-range weapon, you want that extra bullet velocity and damage range. On top of this, I use Tac Laser to improve aim down sight speed. That is really the main reason why you are using it. On top of this, I use the VLK 3 times. You don't have to use this. You can use a holographic sight. I prefer the VLK 3 times because, like I said before, I'm using this at long range. And then the interesting one is the Snatch Grip. This is for recoil control, and it improves your aim down sight speed. So it makes it so that you can use this at mid-range with a faster aim down sight speed, and it makes it easier to hit your target at long range. This class is unreal. I could not believe how good this was when I was using it. So if you haven't tried it out because maybe you've been using the Bruen and it was just so good, this honestly does more damage. It hits like an absolute truck. In fact, I find it even has less recoil than the Bruen did. So if you haven't tried this out, I currently think it's the best weapon in the game. After this is a secondary weapon. We've talked about this class many times before. It is, of course, the MP5. So as far as attachments go on my MP5, I've been using pretty much the exact same thing the entire time. First of all, the Monolithic Integral Suppressor. It actually improves your damage range and keeps you off that mini-map. And on top of that, improves your bullet velocity as well. But on top of this, I use the Merc Foregrip. Now, the Merc Foregrip recently got a silent nerf where it used to improve your movement speed. Now it actually decreases your movement speed. So the only reason why I use it on my MP5 still is because it drastically decreases the hip spread and makes it easier to fire from the hip. On top of this, I'm using the Tac Laser for a faster aim down sight speed. Similarly, the Stippled Grip for the same reason, and then the 45 round mags just to have that bigger magazine. If I'm playing in trios or quads, you pretty much need a bigger magazine, so that's what I'm using here. So all in all, the magic of this class is you have a primary weapon that hits like an absolute truck even at distance with very low recoil. Basically, you're using this as an assault rifle and a sniper rifle with attachments that improve your aim down sight speed, and then up close you are using that MP5 because It's just basically the best SMG within Warzone. It doesn't quite have the range as other things like the MP7. Don't worry, we'll talk about that gun in a minute. But up close, it's pretty much unbeatable. So the way you look at this class, mid to long range, use the PKM. Short range, use the MP5. The second class we're using here, once again with the same perks, lethal and tactical, but two different weapons. So first of all, we have the Kilo 141. This has kind of slowly become the assault rifle of choice since the ground nerf and other weapons have been nerfed as well. And this one is good. I don't personally like it as much as the other weapons on this list, just because when you first start shooting it, it has this kind of weird up and to the left recoil pattern that I don't love, but it does have very low recoil and really good damage and has one of the best time to kills in Warzone. Now, on this weapon, what I'm using is once again that VLK 3x optic to reduce the recoil. On top of this, as always, the monolithic suppressor. After this, the barrel that I use is the 19.8 Prowler barrel. It improves the damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. So all good things for a long-range weapon that you're using. The downsides is the aim down sight speed is really the big one, and I don't really use anything to counteract this on this weapon. Now, there's a reasoning for that, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, on top of this, I also use a Commando foregrip for more recoil stabilization. Again, I am using this as my long-range weapon. You almost want it as a sniper rifle. And then 60 round mags just to increase that magazine size. You can use 100 round drum mags, but it greatly decreases your movement speed. So that's why I use the 60 instead. Now, the reason why I don't use anything to improve my aim down sight speed is because on this class, I am using this solely as a long-range weapon. My short and mid-range is controlled by the MP7, and that's why I'm not using an MP5 on this class, is because I want something that's also good at mid-range, and the MP7 absolutely is. It has such a good fire rate with very low recoil. Now, what I use on this is, once again, monolithic suppressor, the recon barrel. This is going to improve your damage range, bullet velocity, and once again, recoil control. That's for that mid-range. Tac laser to improve your aim down sight speed, 50 round mags, and stippled grip for an even faster aim down sight speed. So with this is going to be your short to mid-range weapon, whereas the Kilo is going to be your long-range weapons. That is the difference between this class and the previous one with the PKM. The PKM was for mid and long range, whereas the Kilo is just for long range. After this, we have a new weapon, the Finn LMG. So with this class, again, same perks, same lethal, same tactical. In fact, we're even using the same MP5 setup as before. Literally, nothing has changed on here, the exact same as before. But the main difference with this class is the Finn LMG itself. So this LMG has a very fast rate of fire and relatively low recoil. I find this thing is a little bit of a pea shooter at long range. That's the only downside to it. So most of the gunfights that you're going to want to get into with this class are going to be mid to short range. So plan on using this class when you're going to be in areas like downtown, when you don't have to hit incredibly long shots. For example, as if you were in farmland or something like that. Now on this class, I am going to be using things to help me at long range. So first of all, I'm using the VLK 3x optic. You're going to see this a lot throughout all of my classes, as you already have. Now this one is interesting. So there's two barrels that you can use here. The first of which is the adverse barrel called the long shot. The second one is the one that doesn't have adverse, that is long shot. I find that the gun shoots too slow if you're not using an adverse barrel, hence why I use the adverse long shot. It's going to improve your fire rate, bullet velocity, and damage range. This is my preferred barrel. I like that higher fire rate. If you find it has too much recoil, use the other long shot barrel without adverse. On top of this, the mono suppressor, nothing has changed there. Commando foregrip to reduce that recoil, and on top of that, tac laser to make this have a faster aim down sight speed. Now this weapon is decent at long range, but where it really excels is at mid range, and on top of that, you can win gunfights at short range too, as long as you're using that adverse barrel with the faster fire rate. Now, that being said, I am using it with the MP5. That way, if I do get in close range, I just pop this bad boy out and it pretty much wins every single gunfight, unless you get up against a shotgun, which don't worry, we'll get into in a second. The next class I have here has been, I believe, on my last 3 class set of videos, and that's my M4 sniper class. I predominantly use this if I am playing duos or solos, because that's where I find snipers make a bigger difference. You can pick people off at long range. You don't even have to worry about it. As soon as you pick someone off, you can close the gap if you're playing in duos. So on my sniper rifle, what I use, this has not changed since the very beginning: monolithic suppressor, HDR pro barrel, tac laser, variable zoom. I really recommend this variable zoom. If you haven't given it a shot, try it out. And then the Stalker Scout stock just to improve that aim down sights a little bit more and make it a little bit easier to get some quick scopes if you need to. Now, as far as my M4 goes, there is one thing that has changed on this class, and that is that I no longer use the Merc foregrip. It used to improve your movement speed, now it decreases it, so instead I just use the Commando foregrip for extra recoil stabilization. On top of this, I use the M16 barrel. This improves damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. The reason why that recoil control is so important is, as you can see, I'm not using the VLK 3 times, which means I need that extra recoil control. On top of this, as always, monolithic suppressor, shouldn't be surprised at this point. 50 round mags if I'm playing larger games like duos or trios, and then stippled grip to improve that aim down sight speed. This has just been a good gun with this loadout since the very beginning of Warzone. It has very low recoil, does a very good job at long range, and it even does a good job at short range as well, hence why I use this when I'm not using an SMG. So I recommend trying this one out. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. This is just a class that's been good since the very beginning of Warzone and hasn't really changed. Now, this last class that we have has changed many times throughout Warzone, and that is using the Grau, but this time we are using it with the Origin 12. Which is very strange. Now, let me explain this class because it is freaking weird just from the beginning. So first of all, I use a stun grenade on this one because that way if I'm running into a building, I can stun someone and then use the Origin 12 and have a huge advantage. If you're not playing with a team who is using heartbeat sensors, use a heartbeat sensor instead. Pretty straightforward. Now, the reason why I'm using the Origin 12 with the Grau is simply because the Grau is good at mid and long range, and the Origin 12 is only good at short range, incredibly short range, but it's basically the best weapon at short range. So use this only in close quarters, inside buildings, up close and personal. The rest of the time you're going to be using the Grau. Now on my Grau, this has changed a little bit. First of all, no longer using the Merc foregrip, using the Commando instead, just for a little bit better recoil. On top of this, the Archangel barrel. This is the barrel I've pretty much used since the very beginning. Improves damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. Mono suppressor, no surprise there whatsoever. And then the VLK 3 times optic for that extra recoil control, and then 50 round magazines because I'm most of the time playing either trios or quads. Now, speaking of trios and quads, with my Origin, that is why I'm using the 25 round drum magazine. If I'm playing duos or solos, do not use this. Use the 12 round or even 8 round instead. Honestly, you kill people most of the time in 2 to 3 shots anyway. On top of this, I'm using the Commando foregrip, pretty straightforward. Stippled grip tape for faster aim down sight speed, and on top of that, tac laser as well for faster aim down sight speed. This gun is just kind of stupid. You kill people incredibly fast with it at close range. I'm sure you've seen it a lot if you've been playing a lot of Warzone lately. I don't think it's the best class in the game, but the Origin is the best gun at short range, and that is why I use it with the Grau, is because the Grau is good at long range because it has low recoil, and at short and medium range because it has a fast rate of fire. So honestly, if you haven't tried this class setup, I recommend it, especially if you're going to be in a zone that has a lot of interior buildings, whether that's downtown or even something like Promenade. So ladies and gentlemen, those are my 5 favorite classes as of right now, and I believe the 5 best classes currently in Warzone. Now, if you disagree with one of them, if I missed your favorite weapon, let me know what I missed down in the comments, or let me know some of the attachments that you would change. Let me know what your favorite weapons are, all of that kind of stuff down in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed the video, it is always appreciated if you do hit that like button, and as always, if you're new to the channel, like what you see, want to stay up to date on all my videos, the best way to do so is make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you turn notifications on. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace out.